Thank you to everyone for joining us. I am Shibani Joshi, and for the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to be exploring how small businesses can adapt financial and digital tools to adjust to changing consumer expectations. Joining me for this discussion is BRICKLIN DWYER. He's Mastercard's EVP and CEO for Payment Solutions. Also with us is Curtis HOWSE. He's Synchrony's EVP and CEO for Payment Solutions. Curtis, BRICKLIN, it's good to have you today.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you very much.
Before we want to get into things, I want to remind everyone that this is an interactive session. We do want to hear from you. Be sure to check out the chat function on the right-hand side of your screen. Interact with one another, ask us questions, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. With that, let's just kick things off. Curtis, I want to start with you. Welcome. Please set the stage for us and tell us in 2 to 3 sentences what Synchrony does and what your role is at the company.
Absolutely. When you think about Synchrony, you should think of us as a premier consumer financial services company. We have a wide range of financing programs and consumer banking products across many industries that include digital, retail, home, auto, travel, and health. And Shibani, we even provide services for pets. In terms of my background, I have 25 years of consumer and commercial finance experience at GE and Synchrony. I've run operations in the United States, Mexico, Latin America, and Canada. And today I'm the CEO of our Payment Solutions business, as you've mentioned, and I also serve as the company's Chief Commercial Officer.
Great. You bring a lot to the table, Curtis, and I can't wait to dig into that. BRICKLIN, what about you? What brings Mastercard and Synchrony together on this stage?
Well, thank you very much, Shibani, and good to see you, Curtis. I think, what Mastercard brings to the table here is really the partnership to enable both Synchrony and other customers to really participate in the global economy. And at the Mastercard Economics Institute, what we do is we try to help both consumers as well as businesses and the rest of the world figure out what the landscape is and what's happening in the world around us. So we try to help us in as many ways as we can. So as a chief economist, we help deliver those macroeconomic thought leadership to our customers and everyone else.
Crucial service at this time. Let's dig into what you said there about the landscape. Curtis, we know how the last 15 months, how challenging these last 15 months have been for businesses. How has the landscape changed for them?
Yeah, look, 2020 dramatically changed the small business landscape for merchants, retailers, and healthcare providers. It started with COVID, but it also included social unrest, the economy, and major weather. All of these factors contributed to a significant amount of instability that we see in the marketplace today. In fact, out of the 30 million small businesses in the US, we still don't have clear line of sight as to how many of those closed over the course of the past 15 months. But we do know that they faced enormous pressure and challenges that include things like navigating available government relief programs at the local, state, and national levels. None of those processes have been simple or easy. Supply chain implications. The supply chain buckled in 2020, and small businesses are still managing through delivery and logistic issues this year. Keeping up with constantly changing regulations and restrictions, all while trying to keep employees and customers safe. And the big one is really around adapting to digital and e-commerce. This required a huge pivot for everyone, and it required many small businesses to create an online presence and to do so quickly.
Yeah, a tall order there for any small business owner. BRICKLIN, what has Mastercard observed?
So as Curtis mentioned, the change has been tremendous. This need for adaptation, for figuring out how to take a business that wasn't digital and figure out how to move it digital, and without losing that base of who these companies really are. So we've seen this massive impact of small businesses. As we know, they make up about half of global GDP, so a huge presence around the world, about 70% of all workers globally. And what we saw during 2020 is about $900 billion in spending that went online in retail. And so you think about that number, $900 billion around the world being spent online in retail, and that creates a massive opportunity, but a massive opportunity if you jump on the digital bandwagon and you maintain that agility, which is listening to the market and understanding where you can be successful and where you need to dial it back and, have that in-person presence. And that's really that adaptation that businesses are really facing today.
Yeah, such a massive shift, making us all e-commerce customers, whether we wanted to or not. I want to get to our poll results and get each of you to weigh in very quickly. The poll question was, as a small business owner operator, where are you in terms of investing more time and resources into digital in 2021? And the majority of people, about 40%, were in the third camp. We do a lot of digital, but could do more. Another third of the group said in planning stages only. How does this compare, Curtis and BRICKLIN, to what you're seeing in your work?
Yeah, what I would tell you is that digital is the focus. And if you're not leaning into it, you're going to really need to lean into it. And if you're leaning into it, you're going to have to lean into it even more. When we talk to partners, when we think about our own strategies, look, at the end of the day, you've got to go, we have to go where the consumers are, where the partners are, where the need is. And essentially, when you think about what happened over the course of the last year, we were forced to stay at home. We couldn't get out as much. And that just forced us to really lean into our online and e-commerce capabilities. And while the world will stabilize over time, it will never be the same. And so digital is absolutely key.
Yeah, and just to jump on that, I think, what we're seeing is really an unprecedented education of moving online. That means both businesses are moving online as well as consumers. And that's creating that opportunity. And that's that freight train that Curtis was talking about that you better jump on, or you'll get left behind. And so that's the momentum that we're seeing right now. And so, at Mastercard, we recognize that a lot of businesses aren't online. So we developed a digital doors curriculum, a lot like your survey that you've just taken, to help small business owners understand, how to move online, how to protect themselves online. Those that are online, we created the Small Business Digital Readiness Index or diagnostic that allows you to create an evaluation of where you are. And then we looked at what are the benefits of moving online. And this is the big question for small businesses today. They have limited funds. They have limited access to capital. So they really need to make these investment decisions carefully. And so in the US, we've seen, using our test and learn solution, we've seen about 6% increase for small businesses that's under 500K in revenues, about a 6% increase in revenues for the folks that went online versus the folks that didn't. So quite a substantial gain. If you can think about your own business and where you fall into that category and what the 6% would mean for you in your different industries, that can give you some sense of a benchmark of the benefits of moving online during the pandemic.
Yeah, and those benchmarks are key because we're all in uncharted territory. So we need that guidance when we can get it. We've got questions coming in fast and furiously, and I'd love to throw them your way. And Curtis and BRICKLIN, jump in there if you want to answer them, and we'll just keep rolling through them. We've got a question from Victor. Could you elaborate on the landscape for travel and retail for the fourth quarter of 2021? Who wants to take that?
Yeah, maybe I can kick that off. I mean, the landscape for travel and retail in the fourth quarter of 2021, so we're talking about where we're going. So in the US economy, we have this massive fiscal stimulus that's propping up spending through the end of the spring into the summer months. That's going to likely continue to grow some legs there. We see a lot of willingness to travel, a lot of folks that are looking at domestic travel. And if you've been to a local airport and you've seen the amount of people that have been in the airports, domestic travel is certainly back and driving a lot of momentum. So that willingness to travel, the willingness to spend there. Americans have about $2.5 trillion of a couple of extra zeros there of excess savings in their bank account. So when that money gets unlocked, that's going to create a lot of demand. So we see a lot of momentum right now, but I think that the big question is how far does that drive us, and does that drive us into next year, or does it fall short and end in the season a bit soft? Typically, we don't see a big drop off in Q4 or holiday spending. That's the time when people dip into savings. So generally, it ends up being a pretty decent time of year.
I have a question from Brian. Given that we're closer to reopening than we are to the beginning of the pandemic, it seems like small businesses that didn't pivot or adapt are no longer in business. What advice do you give to small businesses as the economy starts to fully reopen, specifically around cash flow, inventory, digital versus in-person shopping experiences? I know that both of you have a lot to offer in terms of that. Curtis, do you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, I would say that, look, if you were late to the party, you've got to really step back and think through strategically what you can do to become more engaged. One of the things that we've tried to do at Synchrony is to really partner with the small business organizations to help them pivot quickly, to learn new skills, to adapt to this environment. And that included a couple of things. We created more than 40 pieces of content on topics that range from navigating PPP loans to how to reopen your business to leadership in difficult times. From a digital marketing e-commerce perspective, we help partners to really learn how to build and leverage their websites and really especially do so on social. When you think about it, 81% of Americans use YouTube, 70% use Facebook. It's all about meeting customers where they are. And even now, we continue to really support our small businesses, whether it's through our annual small business contest, which we call the Pillars Project, which really recognizes local businesses for the impact they're making, or Envision, our annual thought leadership events. These are things that I think you need to lean into and really become a part of to help change the game, to help elevate your engagement and growth. And lastly, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this because BRICKLIN and I are on the line, the partnership that exists between companies like Mastercard and Synchrony and your ability to tap into the resources and to the tools that we have to help you grow your business is going to be critical.
BRICKLIN, anything to add?
Yeah, the key word that just pops in my mind is that adaptation. And, small businesses may be down, but, these are folks that are entrepreneurs at heart, right? And so the question is about how do you reinvent? And reinvent is an ongoing process. You don't set up your business and then walk away. You set it up and then you continue to adapt. And what's being asked of small businesses today is that continued adaptation, which is accelerated. And so we're seeing that happen. And so I think Curtis is right. Lean on people around you who can help provide some of those resources to help you with that quick adaptation.
Curtis, I also want to talk about the changing consumer wants and needs. BRICKLIN was talking about $2 trillion coming into the market, but we're dealing with a brand new customer almost. They value different things. What are you seeing from what customers want in 2021 and beyond?
At Synchrony, we're constantly taking the pulse of consumers, learning about their buying behavior, and better understanding their expectations. In the last 30 days alone, we've pulsed consumers, and we've learned a few things. One is that small businesses are playing a progressively larger role in the minds of consumers and their share of wallet. Our research showed that in 2020 alone, 25% of respondents shopped at a small business more often than in 2019, and that trend is going to continue in 2021. In healthcare, we see increased demand for online engagement. 79% of respondents agreed that healthcare providers should offer in-person and virtual appointments post-COVID. Small businesses should really leverage consumer preferences for shopping and engaging online with, again, a focus on meeting the consumer where they are in their life cycle and in their life's journey. And a great example, Shibani, of this comes from Katie at the Quilter's Trunk in Chicago. She was one of the Pillars Project winners the Pillars Project that I talked about earlier. She was a winner in this contest. She did a fantastic job of creating a virtual community hub to engage with her shoppers during COVID, and she had unbelievable participation. And based on the demand that she's seeing, she's going to continue to improve the production quality of the hub and will continue to offer it in the future.
So she was forced into adopting digital, and it seems to be a mainstream and a mainstay. BRICKLIN, what does the consumer look like from your angle?
Well, I want to draw on something that Curtis mentioned, which is meeting your consumer and showing up where they are. And the consumer is online and is also more suburban than it has been historically. And that suburban shift of where people are shopping and how people are shopping is a key piece of it. And meeting those expectations, because people are becoming more accustomed to buying online, they're becoming more accustomed to contactless with friends and contactless with purchasing.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing that really proliferate a lot of different industries and trying to figure out what the new drive-through is of today. So a lot of these trends that we've seen historically over time are going to be coming back to the forefront. Those experience economies, how people think about, really nurturing the relationship with their customers, because there is so much fluidity of moving and shopping online and buying at other places. So really appreciating who your customers are, how they're shopping, how they're bridging that gap between buying stuff in a store and buying stuff in your online store, and how to keep them on both channels.
Yeah, that customer engagement is really key. We've gotten 2 questions, one from Steven. He has a cleaning business that has pivoted. And as he's launching his new venture, what would be the most advantageous way to gain access to capital? Joe is also asking, has access to capital for startups changed due to the pandemic? So we've got to access to capital, sort of how do you pivot and get the money during this time?
Yeah, what I would say is that certainly there's money out there for small businesses. You've got to be able to look for grants, look for awards, look for loans to help support your growth efforts. Leaning into resources, leaning into the community that you have, leaning into the partnerships that exist, like the ones we're talking about between Mastercard and Synchrony. Really leverage your full suite of resources because there's plenty of money out there.
BRICKLIN,
anything to add?
Yeah, I think it is about creativity, and creativity goes beyond the traditional ways of showing up at your bank and mortgaging your house. So I think it is about that creativity and leveraging things around you that are going to create those opportunities.
Curtis, what should small businesses consider leveraging to meet new customer expectations? Are we going to go back? I mean, how do you meet the customer where he or she is in the moment?
Look, I think you've got to just step back and really look inwardly. One of the things that I think is critically important as we go through this journey is to make sure that you're seeing your customer as they see you. A lot of times when we have small businesses, we tend to think about what we feel the customer needs or what the customer's view is. I think for us, it's about seeing the business through their eyes, through the eyes of the community, through your customers, through those who really are buying from you. Secondly, it's really about this whole need, again, to really focus in on digital. We're not going to talk about digital enough in this discussion. I think that's critical. I think it's important to stay connected to your community, be a good citizen. And we've already talked about the fact that there's money out there, but those are some of the things that I think that you've got to really think about and really act on.
BRICKLIN, I want to ask you a question from Steve. What does America 2.0 mean to you? And then I'll toss that over to you, Curtis.
So I think a lot of that is going to hinge on what the future of cities are and how that dynamic between the future of work and what cities are and how that evolves. As I see a lot of the trends, so we think about that shift to digital, that $900 billion number that we threw out in the beginning of total online spend that we saw in 2020, we see about 20 to 30% of that sticking around. So the future of America, the future of these different industries, a lot of that shift to digital will stick around, and we'll continue to see that movement toward digital evolving. In addition to that, as I mentioned about these cities, this is a big piece of it. We were already seeing this big work from home environment that folks were demanding, that more flexibility around their work environment. So we're going to see a lot more of that, which means that the time and day that people are spending is going to shift, and how people are spending and how they're picking up their goods and how they're getting things delivered. So there's a lot of things changing around the consumer, where they're shopping. That flexible agility of shopping is going to need to be met by the small businesses around the world and around the United States to really think about how to address these evolving trends. And just to highlight again, this is not a one and done and now we've shifted to digital. This is a continued evolution where we're going to have these ebbs and flows, some big winners, some losers, and continue to ebb and flow as folks figure out the right mix.
It will continue to evolve for years to come. Curtis, 2.0, America, what does it mean to you?
Look, I think essentially what it means is that we're not going back. we are establishing a new norm. This evolution of customer expectations will continue, and the successful business must figure out new ways to communicate, to market, and to engage with customers. You know, I think it's something that we're going to have to really spend a lot of time thinking about, discussing. For example, our partners in the healthcare space, they're going to have to continue to focus on virtual visits in addition to office appointments. That's America 2.0. And as a small business owner, you've got to really think about some things you're going to want to really focus on, such as value propositions. There are new views and expectations on what success looks like. You've got to ask yourself, what sets your business or practice apart in the marketplace in this America 2.0? Try to be really specific. Every business should know the types of innovations, services, features they promise to deliver to their customers. And the other thing that's important in America 2.0 is that you're going to have to focus on more than just price. It's really going to be about value. What do customers get from engaging with you that's more than simply a selling transaction? And I'm going to go back to digital, and I'm going to lean into data again. At the end of the day, you can't be afraid to gather helpful data about your consumers in America 2.0 because it can be a game changer. Use it to help personalize your customer experiences, whether it's in your store, on your website, in communications, or your social media strategy. And also know that an inexpensive CRM tool can really help you get the information you need to drive sales growth and differentiate your business from competitors in this new landscape.
Some great actionable advice, Curtis. Thank you so much. Same to you, BRICKLIN. We've run out of time, unfortunately. We could keep going, I know, for hours. Thank you so much for being with us, and to everyone for being in this session, and to Synchrony for its sponsorship of this event. Visit the Synchrony booth in the expo area to learn more about ways in which they're working with and for small businesses. And if you want to go back to the next session, hit the stage button to get to it. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for being with us.